I've been accused of micromanaging and I still am, but because I've seen it all and my leaders are now taking that over, but they're understanding that I do have 13 years of experience working on all things and they can't just say, no, Joe, this is how it is, because there's a bit of right on both sides.
Hey, what's up, agency owners? Jason Swenk here with another episode of the Smart Agency Masterclass, a podcast for the agency owner that wants to grow and scale faster. And on today's episode, I have an amazing guest who's built an amazing technology for agency owners. But we're not going to just talk about his technology. We're going to talk about how they grew their team from management to leadership and what he would have to do it over again and some of the mistakes, because a lot of us are making mistakes. Like, about growing your agency and scaling the next level is about who. Who do you need to hire and who do you need to become to lead those who's? So let's go ahead and jump into the episode. Hey, Joe, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on. So tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so my name is Joe Kindness. I'm a Canadian here in Toronto. We offer an automated client reporting solution for marketing agencies. So we offer the ability for you to send reports to your clients and not have to worry about doing all that dirty work of building them, logging into systems and all that stuff. So we save time and help you reduce churn that way.
Awesome. Tell us a little bit about your origin story. I mean, is this your first business? Tell us more about it.
Yeah, it's quite a long story now. It goes back to 2010. So I come from a place, I was a developer, went to school for computer science. So I had a high school friend named Blake. Blake and I got together one day. I guess it was several days in thinking about it. And we said, you know what? I think we could, at this point in our lives, not take a salary for about a year, go into debt, and try to start a company. And that's what we did. We said, we've got a whole year, and if this doesn't work, we'll get jobs. And so we spent a year. We eventually started gaining traction, and then we got here. So it was a lot of in between steps, but we kind of just started coding away and just stumbled into something eventually.
What made you want to take on debt? Because there's a lot of, because starting an agency, right? Like, I know you guys started a software company, but I feel it's very similar, even though we have different perspectives. Like, a lot of agency owners think, I can start an agency just with the laptop and just do it. And I don't even really have to take on debt. So what was the debt? Like, what was that first risk? Were you bringing on other developers or other people?
So when I say debt, it probably meant something different to you. My debt was, I was fresh out of school. I had a mortgage, and I just took a little out of that mortgage. I think I got maybe $20,000 in debt. So we're completely bootstrapped. We've never taken on funding. And for anyone out there starting a business, if you can, I would do that. If you can get away with it. And I think the golden ticket there is there something you can build yourself? And if there is, and you're young enough where you don't have dependencies in your life yet, go ahead and just hack away. Don't be afraid. There's something that will lead to something and something else and something else. And that first thing you try will definitely fail, and it won't be the thing that is, getting you to the end, but it's part of the journey. So I know it's really hard to not take on funding, but try to avoid it. I think that, the Silicon Valley recipe is always to get funding first, and that's all they talk about. Yeah. No one really talks about building a business and making it profitable anymore, it feels like.
Yeah, and for all my SaaS friends out there, I always know is once you take on funding, you're always taking on funding. It never stops. So I think that's great advice. A lot of agency owners will relate with you because you guys were the coders. You guys were actually programming this. And a lot of agency owners are the ones programming, designing, marketing, doing the actual work. So you've come a long way. I mean, you have over 115 people, you have C-suite people, all this kind of stuff. What were some of the phases that you went through, and what pain had to happen first before you fixed, like kind of like the first stage of like hiring some people in order to help you guys get to where you're at now?
It's a really great question. And honestly, I've gone through a lot of learning on my own. I didn't have the benefit of having mentorship like I do now. And I just, my business partner and I had to figure out a lot. And, in doing that, we made some mistakes, of course, but we always just put our head down and worked hard. So we actually, started in 2010. We started adding people in 2013, but by 2020, we only had 14 people. So we've gone from 14 people in 2020 to over 100 people now. And that's when we really figured out hiring, because we thought hiring was going to be the easy part. We built this great software, and we said, I remember we opened a Toronto office. We went to IKEA, bought 8 chairs, and we said, okay, now we just have to fill these chairs with people. And those chairs sat empty the whole time we had that office. So it's very hard to scale, very hard to find great people. And it took a lot of attempts before we figured it out.
So, well, first off, what did you guys figure out on the hiring? Because, yeah, I was like you. I remember we were starting to get some momentum in the agency. We bought this 2,500 square foot office. We were given these crap ass cubes that were like, looked like someone threw up all over them. We were given hand-me-down desks set up. We would have clients in there, and we'd have fake pictures, and like literally we had it all staged. And you're laughing because you probably did the same shit.
Yeah. No, I remember those days trying to make yourself look bigger than you were. And honestly, I'm sure we didn't need to do it at all. That wasn't really important. I mean, there's several factors on why like we were able to start figuring out how to scale. One of them wasn't actually, our design. It was more just we were remote at one point before the pandemic. And it was very hard to be remote and attract talent because everybody thought we were a scam or something, that nobody trusted us. So part of the reason why we were able to scale was the pandemic actually opened up the doors to working remote. And when we did that, we actually went all in. We hired a recruiter, we hired HR, we just hired all the support, because otherwise I was doing a lot of interviewing and things like that. And I just realized this is just too much of a volume to do it. And so just started finding that rhythm, just dove in and got like a little bit of traction here, a little traction there, had a lot of generalists that we hired. And now we've kind of leveled up, because as a startup, you have to take what you can get and, take what you can get and try to like show those people what made you get here today, so they can sort of embody that idea as well.
When did you start kind of communicating kind of the vision of the company, and how often do you communicate the vision to the team to attract the right team, but also to keep them as well?
It's kind of like a thing that we always kind of are looking at. I mean, we're getting better and better at it and focusing a little further into the future every year or so. We just actually completed a large exercise where we were working on our product strategy and developing the next level, define the additional product pillars that we're going to build over the next 3 years. So we've shared that with the company so that they can see that we have sort of, we look at it as one quadrant that we're dealing with now, which is the reporting side of the business. And we're going to start to build 3 other quadrants over the next 3 years. And that's really important. People are really excited when they can see what we see and be able to feel like they have, a certain level of trust and autonomy to help get you there. Because that's what it is. When you scale, you want to make sure you don't forget that the message needs to be loud and clear across the whole organization. And it's really difficult, honestly. I never realized how difficult that could be, but we're still learning a lot from that.
People are begging me, probably because I've kind of skipped over it a little bit, and I've done that intentional because I always like to kind of tease people a little bit. And the real elephant in the room is going from 14 or 15 employees, and then like in a year or 2 years going to like 115. So when did you know you were ready for that? Because there's a lot of people listening right now that they're on the verge. They're getting tons of business. They're on the verge, but they're like, how do I pull the trigger? How do I make sure I can afford that? Or, or they're worried that they never want to have to go through a layoff, right? Like, was that ever in your mind? Like, as you were hiring at such a fast pace of going, I'm bringing all these people and they're depending on me. Now you're going to be like, oh shit. Yeah. You're bringing all these people.
Honestly, it goes through my mind more now than during the large scale up. While we were going from that rapid scale up, it was just pure excitement and pure joy in finally being able to bring people in. We were very conservative financially, so we were at a point where we were able to pull the trigger and not worry too much about the financial side. And I think that's what made it fun and exciting, and it was a way where we could just kind of look forward. But now definitely feeling that, that concern and looking at budgets and all those things. And I think the thing about it is that if you get scared and you don't, what's the other side of that? So if you push forward, there, it's that risk reward thing. Push forward, there you could see a bigger jackpot at the end of the rainbow. But if you don't do anything, you could be in danger just as well. So I always think that there's a sort of balance you have to strike and try to iterate, don't blow it up. Try to find that success, like add a person or two or something that is, eating up your time, bring in a person to take over that and just feel it out. Make sure you understand what that did and like what measure of success did that give you. And if you found that was successful, then you're starting to figure out a pattern and do it again,
And you mentioned hiring a recruiter too. At what level did you bring on a recruiter? Was this and I presume this was an in-house recruiter or?
Yeah. So we hired, again, you're going to hire a lot of generalists. So we hired an HR/recruiter. So it's a funny thing too. I interviewed her and I said, listen, I don't know if I have a full-time position for you because I've never hired this position before. And so we took a chance. She joined and I said, my gosh, I should have hired you a long time ago. I had no idea I had this much work for you. So she was kind of like an extension of me because I just offloaded a lot of HR and recruitment responsibilities. So she was doing several interviews a day and just bubbling up people that I should pay attention to. And that was really key because the salary wasn't that high and it helped us scale. And, if you do it all yourself, you got to remember, what are you not doing because you're spending the time doing that?
I mean, it's so smart. We brought in the same type of person. Maybe this was the same person because they were kind of like, and I said the same conversation. I was like, I've never hired anybody for this. So I want you to kind of take off some HR responsibilities and culture building, but I also want you to do interviews and recruit and find talent. And we did it around the 25 mark when we had 25 employees, but I wish I did it around the 10 because it would have just saved so much of my time for that same reason of going, yeah, man, I could totally concentrate on building X or doing something that no one else can do but me. But I'm doing, I'm doing these interviews that, especially if you think back, you're probably interviewing 20 people a week at that hiring, speed. Totally. And that's your whole week.
My wife would just be like, because we went from like, I was more or less like an IC, I was just a developer. And then all of a sudden I'm a guy that interviews all day. And my wife is like, what is this? Like, what happened to your business? Like you used to be happy because like interviewing was it burns you out. It's not like I didn't enjoy the people I talked to, but it's just one after another of asking questions, and so it took away the same questions and the similar responses, and so yeah, definitely it takes away from what else you could be working on. And I think that's important. And let's face it, we all think we should have done something sooner. You said you should have hired that person sooner, but I think I should have hired that person sooner as well. So I mean, you can't beat yourself up over it. But when you do find those key moments in growing your business, take the time to say that was great for what it was worth, and at that time it was still great, and I should recognize that that was a successful moment, and hopefully find another one.
What was another key pivotal moment for you guys scaling? So kind of the first one, bringing in the HR/recruiter that allowed you to save a ton of time. But was there other pivotal moments looking back?
Definitely there was. I mean, there was one moment in 2016. So we were first called My SEO Tool. And I'd love to hear from any of your listeners if they actually recognize that brand, because that company, it's the same company, but we just pivoted a bit. So we were more about we just had like a rank tracker, so you would just track your rankings, and that was the biggest part of the tool. And we recognized that there was a bigger, broader market with going after agencies and helping them with reporting. And we kind of just went from like this idea of we don't want to be this one tool to we want to solve bigger problems. And we just made the switch. I remember we argued probably for 6 months over the domain, what to choose. And my business partner, it was like the first one he said, and then we spent 6 months arguing. And then we went back and he's like, you know what? I think you got something there. And I'm still, thankful for those little moments. Like that was a really good one that we capitalized on. So yeah, definitely moving from that, one tool space to like a bigger solution was huge as well.
Well, it's also finding kind of your perfect audience and really calling it out. Like too many of us, we try to reach anybody and everybody, and it's actually kind of distracting. And then you're not really separating yourself. There's no differentiation.
If you find, I think niche is very important. We can, we always talk about like how our software could be used for just a general marketer or whatnot. But, to us, supporting the agency is really important because it represents a niche. And if you can find your niche, we have a lot of customers that have a niche in the agency world. They cater to real estate, they cater to healthcare, automotive, and we get a glimpse into. We talk to them, and they give us a glimpse into how they're doing and things like that. And those niches are working very well for them because it allows them to laser focus. It allows them to solve a specific problem, and it doesn't stop them from expanding. Because you could start with that niche and expand. But if you start with everything, and you can do it, don't get me wrong, but it's a lot harder to have to like service everything when you could just start with a niche.
Yeah, I mean, you're pushing a huge boulder up a hill rather than starting the snowball, and then the snowball keeps getting bigger and bigger, and then you can roll it back down, and then it's a big size. What was the moment where you started realizing? Like, what were the different levels? So you have, 6 C-level people that report to you.
I actually have counted early. I actually have 7, not 6.
Oof. Oh, that's so many people. So before you had 7, when did you start realizing I need to bring in and really build up the leaders? Because that's a lot of people are at that point where in the very beginning and even toward the middle, like you're just hiring people to do stuff and then maybe manage stuff. But when and how did you guys find true leaders to lead the team? Because there's a big differentiation.
Well, I think at first was recognizing the need for those leaders, because even today I'm still learning more and more about where you need that leadership. And when you do finally have someone you can bring in as a true leader, and let's be clear, like a leader is not just a manager of people. A leader is bringing in strategy, so all those sleepless nights you have because you're thinking about how do I solve this problem or get from X to Y, bringing in a leader, helps you solve those problems. So being able to get to that point where you can afford or attract a person that truly thinks strategy is a really key moment. And, admittedly, we should have done that earlier. Like now that we have some leaders, I'm just seeing like the huge benefit you have to have these people. And I think if you get to that point where you can bring that person in, do it and don't get too caught up in, the equity you're going to give them or, the salary. I know it's hard. I mean, especially a salary, it's hard to do that, but all my leaders have given me a positive ROI, and they will be a key sort of group to help the company get to that next milestone, because they are the ones strategically thinking about things that I no longer have time for or actually don't have the skill for. When you're smaller, you could do everything, but when you get bigger, there's things that I can't do and I don't have the skill for.
Yeah, and you have to ask yourself, how much is your time actually worth? Because I've hired a lot of bad leaders. I've had a lot of good leaders. Like a bad leader is, and you guys, and back me up on this, right? Because I'm sure you probably hired some bad leaders. Bad leaders will come in and they will create more work for everybody and you. Do you agree?
Oh, definitely. I have several stories.
Tell us one.
Well, I think, first of all, a bad leader is more probably a bad leader because they were the wrong culture fit. And that's very damaging. And, when you bring in a leader, you're hoping to say, great, you now go take these people and this department and you deal with it because I'm up to my ears. I need to step away and I need to. And the problem is, if you do that, you're putting a lot of trust in that person. And if they are, a sour grape, they could then ruin everything you kind of worked hard to build. And that's happened to us where, I saw it after some damage had been done and had to kind of fix the situation. And, what I learned from that was when you do hire that C-level person or your leadership or your partner, whoever, take the time. Don't just hire the first resume that looked great. And, this person looks great because he works for another competitor I know, therefore he's a perfect fit, or she. And then that's all you have. Like we made because we needed help fast, we made some drastic decisions that should have taken more time. And, most recently what we've done to find some leaders is use a recruitment firm, because they'll do a very thorough search and they have a whole network of people. So they are stupid expensive, like just ridiculous. However, if you do find that person, I think the ROI is positive. So, that's another thing to think about is if you can afford it, that will get you, that real good leader that, that fits in everything, like culture, skill, all the above.
I look at a good leader. Some of the traits I look for is ones that because the one thing I don't want to have happen when I sold my agency, I experienced this because I felt like I was a good leader then. And I'm a good leader now. I'm always room for improvement, my team can always say, right? But I remember I was so inspired to be with this company that bought us. And then I remember I came up with some ideas and I just got shot down. Like it was just so demotivating. And like the bad leader at the time just demotivated me. And I was like, fuck it, man. I'm a bad employee now. Like I'm out of here. Right.
Yeah.
Versus like a good leader, they're coming in, they're taking away so much of the stuff that you're doing. They're trying to come up and reduce the systems that we've all hodgepodge together, like Frankenstein, the crap. Like you guys have probably gone through this. Like we'll put this system and this system and this system and this system together. The great leader will come in and be like, how can I make this simpler for everyone? How do I take things away? How do I kind of relieve a lot of the pain? What are some traits that you look for, in a good leader?
Well, I think it makes me think of this might connect with some people out there, because we are a bootstrap company and we built this ourselves, we knew every facet of the business. So we could do any role. And because of that, we were very close to those things. And I've been accused of micromanaging and I still am, but because I've seen it all. And my leaders are now taking that over, but they're understanding that I do have, 13 years of experience working on all things, and they can't just say, no, Joe, this is how it is, because there's a bit of right on both sides. So I think my best leaders are the ones that recognize, what do we have here now? Because it's not perfect. If they've come from a place that is a bigger company, that company probably did certain processes better. But so they're saying, I need to get that process implemented that worked for the bigger company, but I can't do that overnight because it'll break everything. And I gotta somehow, these founders, they've done things their way that might not have been textbook. So how do I take their way and transition it to the more scalable way? And if you find a leader that recognizes that situation, I think you're more likely to be able to iterate and evolve versus, a leader that comes in and says, oh, you're doing this all wrong. We need to start from scratch. We need to pivot. We need to fire these people. We need to hire these. We need to spend all this money and just, guns a-blazing. It's a very dangerous thing because there's something you've done that worked. If it's not in the textbook, who cares? It worked. It got you here. And a good leader should recognize that there's something that's working and we need to find that out and figure out a way to create a system that scales around that. And I think that most of my leaders have had to witness that pain of like, oh, you did it this way. Okay, I will deal with that for now, but we're going to move it to that way, but we're going to take our time.
How did you relinquish control? Because you've been doing it your way, your guys' way for so long. You've been doing everybody's role. There's so many of us that going, like, you got to kind of let your team, and you've done a good job, like letting your team go do it. But what made you kind of commit to that? Like, was there like a moment? Because I work with a lot of agencies and they're like, they'll complain about their team, but at the end of the day, I know exactly where I'm going. I'm like, it's you, dummy. Like, get out of the own damn way. Let your team go do this, right? But what was the moment you realized that you're like, man, let me just let them do it. They're not going to be perfect, but their 80% is going to be better than my 10% that I have the ability to put into it?
It's a great question because it's very hard to do. So I think I'm trying really hard to do that on a daily basis, this idea of letting go. And it's easy when you can let go because you recognize you're the worst person in the room. When you do some good hiring and you can be like, wow, you're going to crush me. You take it. Go for it. That's a real easy way to let go. But when you're still not confident in your team and, you still recognize that you bring something to the table, that's where it gets a little more difficult. And personally, where I'm struggling is where I'm most passionate about. So I really love product and design. And that's one area I haven't fully stepped away from. And, I'm getting away with it because I keep referencing Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs still reviewed like all the demos that came through Apple. And, so I'm still seeing large mock-ups that are going to get released, because I still have a invested passion and I would say a skill set. But I'm looking forward to the day where I feel like I'm the worst person in the room there. So we're trying to we're actually building out our design team right now. And I'm looking to bring in some leadership, some really good ICs. And I'm wanting them to make a fool of myself. I show me that I suck. That's my goal. And I will gladly step away.
Yeah. I think it's a good mentality. And you should always be striving to be the dumbest person in the room, on your team. But I also too, I tell people, if you have a passion for something in the business, that's why you're doing it. So you should do that role, but you shouldn't have to do that role. My passion was always on the creative strategy when we're building websites or apps. I always loved the first meeting with the client. I always loved extracting out the information that they didn't know they wanted to tell me, because, it's like everyone, I'll know it when I see it, right? That was always when we're designing websites, but I was really good at that. Now, by the time we sold, I wasn't the best at it, but I still did it because I had a passion for it, and that gave me energy. And so you should do that. But I didn't have to. I got the company into a place where I didn't have to do that, but I wanted to. So if you guys are listening, to both of us, it's hey, if you like the creative process or the development process or the sales process, especially there's a lot of agencies that love the sales process. But I'm no. You like the close process. You don't like the sales process. So what you need to come in is sprinkle and add the little color, but you have someone else take over everything. So it's figure that part out.
Well, I think that's great what you just said there. And I always try to figure out where can I add the strategy element? So the work, the IC work, I shouldn't be doing unless I can do it and it doesn't get in the way. Because if it gets in the way, I'm causing a problem. But can I reposition myself so that I can be part of the strategy? So when, and that could just be, you're dealing with a small problem and someone just needs help to walk through it. I would love to help with those problems. Or it could be there is a big project and it's kind of going through the stakeholder review, and you're just one of them to say, here's what I think, or, great work, whatever. You're still part of that thing that was passionate to you because you're still getting to be part of that process.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this has all been amazing. Tell us a little bit about this amazing solution you guys have.
Yeah, so if you're an agency and you're, wasting time creating reports, that's what we do. We solve that time crunch for you. We allow you to connect all your clients into one system where you connect their Facebook account, I was going to say Twitter, but their X account, Google Analytics, Shopify. We have over 70 integrations. So we just connect them all, connect to the API, and we bring in all that data so we can create reports. And then, you automate this by setting up those reports for your client. Your client can get them monthly, weekly, or they can log into the platform to see a dashboard. And, that creates engagement, which is really important. You're doing all this work and your client's sitting there, what's going on? You want to keep them engaged, but you don't want to waste your time because you got to do that work. So giving them those eyes into the reporting lens helps them stay engaged and actually, should see the progress. So yeah, no, we found it's been a big help for agencies. We have over 6,000. A lot of them are, small to medium to large and, have a niche or don't. They're all over the map. And, we never do anything that makes you run your business one way. We just provide reporting and let you do however you want to with those reports.
Well, I love it that it saves you time and it creates a stickiness with your clients, right? Because they leave, they don't necessarily get all that. So, 2 huge bonuses. Where can people go, if they want to check you guys out?
Yeah, so if you go over to agencyanalytics.com/smart, you can sign up for a 14-day trial. 14-day trial gives you everything that you would get when you become a customer. We have great support, so reach out to us if you have any questions. But I'm sure you'll find a good use of it, even if it's just for your own website. A lot of people start there and then they branch out by adding their clients. So yeah, it's a quick and easy setup.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Joe, for coming on. Everyone go check out agencyanalytics.com/smart. Check out your free trial. I started messing around with it. I was like, man, this is really cool how it connects all these different, software and technology together. So make sure you go do that now. And until next time, have a swank day.